We don't follow hope, hope follows us. And I think that's what really hits home for me. It doesn't actually matter what we think will happen, it matters what we do.
Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast. Welcome back to the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler, coming to you from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland in New Zealand, and I'm joined this week by Zach Semke. How you doing, Zach?
I'm doing great, thank you.
And we've also got Jay with us. Jay Fox, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic.
And it's great that you've brought another interview. This is an interview based on an article that you're writing? I think by the time we publish this, the article will be up.
Yes, so it's going to be going up on the 11th, and then it will be sent out as the article of the week over the weekend. But I've been working on this for a little bit. I believe the actual interview took place on Juneteenth with Ace.
Yes.
And just a really, really great person to meet. I've met Jacob Rakusin once before, but this is my first time really meeting Ace, and he's just really interesting guy.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, and it follows on some recent themes around panelization and also looking to get that high level of performance using more natural materials as well and reducing toxicity. So looking forward to getting into that. But before we do, Zach, we've got a few people to thank.
Indeed, a big thank you to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Thank you to our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Ingui Architecture, Partel, Rockwell North America, and Zola Windows. And thank you to our champion sponsors, Bewizo, Cascadia Windows and Doors, European Architectural Supply, Facro, Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, LG Air Conditioning Technologies, and Source 2050. And a big thank you to Partel for being our sponsor of the week this week and making all of our programming possible here at the Accelerator, including the Passive House podcast.
Awesome. All right. Hey, well, let's jump straight into this week's feature interview with Ace McArleton, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of New Frameworks.
Hello, my name is Jay Fox. I am hosting the Passive House podcast today, and I have Ace McArleton with me. He's the co-founder and co-CEO of New Frameworks in Vermont. Today, we're going to talk about New Frameworks as well as the Seed Collaborative, which kind of evolved out of New Frameworks, and I'm very interested to find out all about that. Thank you for being here, and happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth to you too, Jay, and to everybody listening.
Well, just to jump in first, I guess I want to kind of know your history within the construction industry, and I'm just curious, what was your first job within the AEC industry?
Oh, I love that question. I remember it vividly. It was I believe, 13-story steel commercial office block in the Bay Area in Emeryville, California.
Okay.
And I was working for a union shop there with the Bricklayers and Allied Craftsworkers Union Local 3. And I was told by the foreman to, show up at the north side of the building with a hard hat at 6 a.m. and ride the temporary red elevator up to floor 7. And I would find the foreman, and his name was Dave. So that was my first job.
You're like, yo, Dave, is there a Dave? And just, 6 people turn around.
That's right.
All
Yeah,
right.
but I learned everything on that job. I learned, how to work in the trades, what's important, how to work hard, the very key things you always start with, where's your power, where's your water, where's your routes, it's the thing you need to know on any job.
That's awesome. And so from there, what led into an interest in more, low carbon and sustainable and local materials and better building practices?
Well, it's sort of a direct line from that, actually. I loved my experience working on those large projects with, big crews. I loved the feeling of having something tangible at the end of the day that I had created with my hands with these other people that I was working with. What I did not love was both the toxic quality of the materials that we were working with, as well as what I kind of think of as the toxic culture that also went along with it.
Mhm.
Not 100%, of course. There were some really great things about it, but the combination of just a very kind of hostile environment for queer folks, trans folks, folks of color, anybody kind of who stood out in whatever way, so I think for me, the direct line to my work now was about starting my own company where I could create a safe space for people who are less commonly invited into the trades and welcomed into the trades, and create a welcoming, inviting space for them.
Mhm.
And also to say that the trades are for everybody. And
They are.
then also to work with materials that connect us to land, to the place that we live, and are, comfortable and healthy to work with. So
Nice. Well, that's lovely. And that, draws into kind of the mission of new frameworks. And I'm curious if there's like a mission statement you have or like something the mantra around the facility and on the job site.
yeah, I mean, we bring a new framework to the AEC industry that prioritizes the right of all people to enjoy and learn trades work, and also to heal our planet while we're doing it, which is kind of a big claim to make. To say that buildings or the way that we build them could actually bring healing and improvement to our planet. I think people are really used to thinking about how do we do less harm? We're going to do harm no matter what. So how do we do less harm? And I think the thing that we have always focused on at New Frameworks is actually that's just not true. We can actually add to and improve the place that we call home
Mhm.
by the way that we build.
Great. And so what are some of the building materials that you're using at New Frameworks?
Well, we've used a lot of things,
Mhm.
but our kind of predominant approach that we're taking right now is using straw, which
Mhm.
is a byproduct of agriculture. So, people grow grain crops to feed people. And we use the bottom of that plant. So, the woody, stalky stem of that grain plant, the cereal grain plant, is straw.
Mhm.
And it is quite a good insulator because it has a lot of air pockets in it. And we are able to get it because it is a waste product from ag. So it's, doesn't have another purpose that is kind of a high value purpose.
Mhm.
And for the most part, that straw would either get returned back into the carbon cycle, actually release carbon back into the atmosphere as that straw degraded as, mulch or animal bedding. And so what we're doing is we're capturing that plant that bound gaseous carbon, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into the body of the plant, into the stalk of the plant. And we're packing it into a wall that is going to last and provide good insulation for people in a healthy way. So that's kind of our big thing. We're building structural straw insulated panels,
Mhm.
taking straw bales from, in our case, organic agriculture in our region. So our farm is about 30 minutes down the road. They grow wheat and corn. We're using the wheat straw from them. And we put those straw bales into a double stud frame in our shop. They
Okay.
are prefabricated panels, and then we send them out to job sites.
Awesome. And I want to get into the assembly of the panel a little bit more, but I'm just curious, have you noticed a difference in like insulating value for different types of straw, like compared to, barley compared to wheat, or is it more or less the same?
As far as I know, it's more or less the same. The question that you're asking is a really cool one, and I think it points to the fact that this is an emerging body of knowledge because people have not taken this material seriously historically as a building material. And so what you're pointing towards is there are lots of nuances that we have this big horizon to learn about as we take some of these natural materials seriously, these plant-based materials seriously. There's a lot of performance data that we can get.
Getting into the wall assembly, what are some of the materials that go into it besides, the obviously the insulation and the straw? Like, are there any, like, do you have a set kind of supply chain for any membranes or anything else that goes into the panel?
Yeah. So the materials in the panel are lumber. Currently, we're using, commodity lumber that we get from our region, which is nice. We're not getting it from the Pacific Northwest, but our local mills, that we like to work with our local mills using local wood, but they're not set up, unfortunately, currently to really do much dimensional lumber. So we're hoping that that's a horizon we can get to. That's actually a really exciting growth area. But so lumber for double stud framing, we use wood fiber board. We happily and excitedly are waiting for Timber HP's board product to come out. We love using Timber HP from Maine and their wood fiber as a pair to our panels. We're currently using Styco, which is also awesome, and we get it through Global Wholesale Supply. Love those guys. You should check them out for great plant-based and carbon storing insulation products and options.
Okay.
So we use wood fiberboard. We use the straw itself. We pack the straw bales in between the double stud frame. And then we typically finish the exterior with plywood for CDX plywood for, shear and exterior sheathing. However, we are looking at lots of different alternatives, like using local board sheathing. Sometimes people like to plaster the exterior of the panels. So that's an option that we do offer. We pair our panels with either a natural clay or lime plaster. So sometimes that happens, but for the most part, it's CDX ply. And then on the interior, our air barrier either is provided by plaster that's bonded directly to the straw. And we do detail those transitions with high performance air sealing tape that we get from 475, High Performance Building Supply. Love 475. They've been longtime friends of ours and kind of colleagues. So we use various tapes for that air sealing at the edge of the plaster. And then if we're not doing a plaster finish directly bonded to the straw, we use a Proclima Intello sheet membrane for the face of the panels. And we can apply that in the shop or it can be applied in the field. We've tried both, but yeah, using essentially Intello and tapes for the interior.
Okay. And then once you get to the site, I mean, you just have to tape the seams and that's
right.
It. Cool. And one other question, which I don't want to go too deep into, but just windows, like, do you have a set manufacturer? Is that kind of up to the client to pick which windows to use?
We don't send them with windows pre-installed. Every kind of prefab or modular builder has a different approach. For us, we're not doing pre-installed windows. Our panels are essentially blocks that create the window and door opening. So the negative space in between, one panel to the left, one panel to the right, our sill panel on the bottom and our header panel on top create that rough opening. So there's not additional framing that's required for that rough opening. So you can just pop windows directly into that or doors directly into that. We're agnostic at the moment. We don't have a set supplier that we're using, but yeah.
Cool. And then I assume like the walls come in different different widths and different thicknesses, even though that's an ugly word to say, but it doesn't sound great coming out. Anyway, so sorry.
Yes, maybe yeah. That's all right.
But so you're going to get different R values, and I'm just curious how those, what the performance of the panels are given like different widths, and how they compare to more conventionally like stick built buildings. Let's say code built rather than stick built, because that's We'll
Okay.
just leave with code built.
Yeah. So the R value of the walls is actually kind of it's one of those also on the testing horizon to really dial in. Um, we do not have like a bespoke R value testing that's been done on our panels.
Okay.
What we have done is worked with CASBA, the California Straw Bale
Mhm.
Association, to do kind of like a literature survey and review of all the testing and extrapolate based on the way that we build our panels. And so we have an accepted R value of R40 for them. We have seen increased, decrease, like some European makers are listing R45 or even R48. We've seen our friends Croft in Maine actually released a report that had them even higher, like pushing 50. So, we've seen lots of different results. And then, of course, the IRC was listing like R28 and R30 for a very long time. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a growth area to really understand the actual R value of these. And, you probably know, and your audience probably knows that real world R value is always more complicated and dynamic R value than whatever's listed on a product kind of stamp of what that R value of that product is. But yeah, we're, high 30s, low 40s, and we're happy and proud for that. And our Jacob Dever-Racusin, who is my co-founder and director of building science and sustainability with us, has done a lot of energy modeling for our homes, both prior to and then post, and has really affirmed that, like, based on the way the energy model was designed and then how we're bearing out in terms of how that building is being used and living,
Mhm.
we're, it corroborates that kind of range of our values of that high 30s, low 40s is right where we should be. So.
All right, perfect. I mean,
And
that's
then in terms of your question around thickness, we actually have a single thickness for the base panel, which is determined by the bale form, actually. So we're taking the straw bales, which are 14 inches by 18 inches by usually 32 to 36 inches long,
Mhm.
and we're packing them into that form. So that form is a 14-inch deep form. Um, so yeah. So 14 inches is the thickness of our panel. With sheathing, it's 14 and a half. If people want more R value, what we do, so our first passive house that we built with our panels in 2019, we wrapped the exterior with a continuous wood fiber board insulation wrap, which brought it to like an R60.
Oh wow.
So, and yeah, so there's many options for how to increase if people need to increase.
Cool. And I didn't think about this until just now, but I mean, you obviously do like roof panels as well. Is it a similar assembly just with like a little boost, like up to R60, or is it a different construction?
It's still wood framing for the panels, and then we fill with dense pack wood fiber insulation
Okay.
from Timber HP. So yeah, so we use Timber HP timber fill for roofs and floors, just so we can get the requisite R value that we needed without having to go super thick.
Okay, got it. And just to when you're, putting up a house, let's say 1,400 square feet, somewhat modest, like how long does that take to get from, panels get delivered to the job site and enclosures done? Like how many hours, days, weeks?
I love that. It's right around like a 2 to 3 week period, depending on the weather, the ground conditions, like a lot of things. We have a 1,200 square foot casita unit, so we have some pre designs that our company makes. And our first time putting up our 1,200 square foot casita was a 2.5 to 3 week period over some pretty nasty weather and some pretty bad ground conditions. So I'd love to rerun it with actually not nasty weather and bad ground conditions, a ton of mud and etc. But it goes quite quickly. That's assembling the floor panels onto the timber sill, and then the wall panels, and then the loft panels, and then the gable panels, and then the roof panels, and then getting the windows and doors in and everything air sealed and WRB'd and everything all wrapped up.
Cool. And you keep mentioning floor panels, and I realized I didn't ask about those. What's like the construction of those, and do you do any like sub slab insulation? I guess not slab, but sub insulation and like I guess, what do you put down before even laying the panel?
Well, the sort of assembly that I'm referring to with the floor panels is when we're doing a pier foundation, which our casitas utilize a pier foundation because we're trying to do as low carbon as possible. And because concrete is one of our biggest emitters, when we look at, I don't know if you or your audience are familiar with the beam calculator, the beam estimator from Builders for Climate Action. But the beam estimator shows us that when we count up the embodied carbon of each of the elements of our structure, one of the highest kind of offenders, if we're looking for low carbon numbers, is going to come from a concrete foundation. So we have decided to use helical piers as our foundation type. So our structures sit up on top of the piers, and so we require then a fully insulated floor box to create that insulated and air sealed enclosure. So those floor panels are again, filled with timber HP and framed. And we have sheathing on the bottom, sheathing on the top, decking on the top. And yeah, they receive, typical flooring as anyone would, and air barrier as well.
Okay. Well, cool. I really like the piers, by the way. I forget, somewhere in BC, it was like the really gnarly site that was just on the weirdest slope, and that was really handy how they create a foundation using that. Anyway, so to jump a little bit, I want to talk about Seed Collaborative, because I heard about this and it sounds super cool, and that's my politics background, maybe why I thought it was so cool, but also building science is fun.
Same on my end, yeah.
So yeah, what is Seed Collaborative, and what are some of the social and structural problems that it's hoping to address?
Yeah, the Seed Collaborative basically is our response to rapidly scaling these technologies, and getting them employed more quickly in in the AEC industry. So we've seen what kind of hiding our IP and being in competition with one another does for slowing the rate of innovation, and like the broad scale adoption of new practices. And so our approach is to take a different approach and to say, one, we don't own this technology. This is an open source technology. Anybody can get Chris Magwood's awesome prefab straw book and read it. Like it's not rocket science. There's nothing secret about it. There's nothing even that complicated about it. Any person who's done some basic building could look at it and understand, okay, this is how you build the panel. So there's nothing highly technical or secretive about anything that's happening. But what we can do and what we've been asked to do. So we were actually approached by other builders, either straw bale builders or green builders, who said, hey, we want to do what you're doing. Can you teach us to do what you're doing so that we can help to rapidly scale this? And so we had to pause and say, well, we're building, we have a company, like, how are we going to teach? What does that look like? So we did some reflection and looked into some options and decided that the best thing we could do would be to create a training program. So we created the SEED program, which is the first step to getting into the collaborative. So people go through the SEED program, SEED training program. We're just in our second cohort this year in 2025. So in 2024, we graduated 2 companies from the initial startup year. So we have an intensive startup training in year 1, where folks come in and we do everything. We do business structure, financial projections. We do, physical plan and setup. We teach everybody. People come here and train for a week in our shop and learn exactly how we're producing the panels, how to install them, etc. So we do at the design work, how to take a design and panelize it for straw panels, how to, care and feeding, all of that. So that intensive first year get somebody ready to begin producing panels. And very proud to say that both of our first year cohort members graduated with 2 projects already done. Actually, they were very keen, and both of them are fully launched and taking on projects and putting it out into the world.
Mhm.
So years 2 and 3 of the collaborative then move towards us becoming new frameworks, becoming an equal part of a collaborative with others, with these other seed companies. So what we do then is we share with each other and collaborate on research and development, improvements to the table, improvements to our methodology. We share strategies, we share marketing, we can share eventually lobbying, we could share other kinds of services that would be in common to lift up our common good.
Yeah.
So that is the idea of both the seed program and the seed collaborative, is that we can scale in a decentralized building leadership and power at local levels way, so that we can actually address this crisis rapidly and spread those ideas and spread that work.
Awesome. And did this idea just kind of come to you we keep running into the same kind of issue of not, we're having trouble scaling because people just don't know about this technology enough. You need more people doing the same thing to find bugs and to fix them and just improve things. Or was there a very specific event where you're okay, I've had it, we're doing this, we need to all collaborate?
I mean, really, it was just people asking us. Like I said, I would be at conferences or even just, checking my email, and, colleagues from around the country were sending me emails or coming up to me at conferences and saying, can I come visit your shop? Can I come learn about what you're doing? How can I start up a thing like what you're doing in my town or in my place? So it was really in response to those requests that we did this. And when we paused and said, how should we design this? For me, when you mentioned your politics, it comes from my background in, anti-authoritarian, anti-capitalist politics of saying, how do we build up direct democracy? How do we support people and believe in the ability of people to solve problems and to solve problems in their locality in specific ways, but also that are connected so that we can all help each other and all leverage the work and help each other. So it was both a combination of, small decentralized, small empowerment with folks with a networked kind of solidarity and shared power.
Nice. And are you working with other straw manufacturers who are not part of the seed collaborative? I know that there's, I don't know, a lot of chatter between some of the prefab folks.
Yeah, we're part of this really awesome. It's called. Oh my gosh, hold on. Analyzers Anonymous.
Love it.
Which is very, very awesome. And actually, the amazing Edie Dillman from Be Public is convening and kind of hosting that. And it's been really lovely getting to just kind of share some of the learnings and challenges that people are facing kind of across really the North American continent. We have folks also from Canada and the US on that, and that's been great. Yeah, I mean, we always believe in the rising tide raises all boats. We are not interested in competition with folks, but rather collaboration and mutual support. So yeah, whether it's EcoCon, whether it's Croft, whether it's Savic, all of the folks in really North America and beyond. We've also been talking with the European Straw Bale Building Association and looking at collaborations there. And Jacob and I actually helped to start the Bio-Based Materials Collective. We're founding members of the steering committee for that organization. And the Bio-Based Materials Collective is representing Mexico, the US, and Canada, so that we have North American representation around bio-based building materials, so that we can actually start to network globally with other leaders like the European Straw Bale Building Association to help lift up these materials as a solution in the face of this really devastating climate crisis that we're all facing.
Yeah. Wow. So cool. I guess I wondered, just you mentioned that's more of a global thing. I'm curious, are there climates that are more suited to these to straw bale construction, or is it kind of a universal, as long as your walls are thick enough, you can go as cold as you want, or is there a temperate kind of sweet spot?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think it's certainly effective because we're talking about a thick wall that's sealed on 6 sides. And as long as we have a proper vapor approach, so we do a vapor open assembly. We want vapor to move through the wall and be able to dry out. We do not want to seal these things from a vapor perspective. They are sealed from an air perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So that vapor balance, as you know, in different climates is going to really change depending on how you're conditioning the interior and what's happening on the outside, what kinds of pressures are on that enclosure.
Yeah.
So I think the caveat would be attending to that vapor balance and to that vapor control, and that would change based on a heating or a cooling climate and how intense that was.
Okay.
I think for me, the other thing to consider would just be, do you need insulation or do you need thermal mass, depending on what your climate is, or do you need both? And so rather than my approach and Jacob's approach, like longstanding, has been, we don't say one material is the answer, because it's not. No one material is the answer. It depends on what's grown locally, what do you have access to, what's a part of that regional and that sort of vernacular building style and approach, looking at what indigenous materials were used in that area or that region, and learning from those indigenous and vernacular traditions and updating them for our modern needs around high performance building, I think is really where it's at. So it's not about straw bale is the answer to the whole world. It's about where straw is grown, where it is a waste product, and where it makes sense to use it. Certainly it can be detailed and utilized in appropriate ways in a high performance building enclosure. And we should look to all of the plant-based and earth-based and mineral-based solutions that we have that are low carbon or carbon storing across the globe. And those answers are going to vary depending on the location and the climate and the place.
Yeah, sounds great. Cool. Well, so I guess going back to C Collaborative and just talking about the successes of that. Like how many? You said 2 went through the cohort this past year. How many do you have for 2025? And what's kind of the trajectory once they're done with their first year, their second, their third? Like, yeah. How? I don't know how to finish that, but
No, that's okay. It's a good question. Yes, so 2 companies are currently in their second year.
Mhm.
We have one in Massachusetts, Rare Forms, one in Missouri, Building Integrity,
Mhm.
and then we have 3 in our 2025 year. So we have 3 companies currently. Actually 4 technically, but 2 of them are partnering, so they're kind of one essentially member of the program. And we have Palm and Earthbound from the DC metro area. We have A1 Design Build from the Pacific Northwest. They're in Washington State. And then Living Craft from Colorado. And so we're starting to really spread, which is awesome. We're starting to kind of hit all the regions or close to them, and yeah, so the people who graduated last year, the 2 companies who graduated from the intensive first year, are launched. They're accepting projects, they're building projects, they're installing projects, and we are really getting to sort of test out the collaborative and what that looks like and how it is that we can share leads, for instance. So how we can share marketing, how we can support each other around production hiccups or schedules or bumps, so if one of us gets super full up, we can pass a project to the other person. Similarly, looking at transportation. So if somebody is close to a certain one of the seedlings of the seed members, they can look to getting it from them instead of from us if we're too far from them, or whatever. So looking also at balancing transportation carbon as well as production efficiency. We've also looked at sharing crews and sharing teams. So if folks have a lag in their schedule and they want to just send folks to come work with another one of the companies for a little bit, we just have options in terms of workforce development, training, sharing of resources. So that's been really exciting. And so where we're heading is, so we had 2 our first year, 3 this year. Our goal is 4 to 5 for next year. So we're growing slowly. We're not trying to, blow this out of the water so quickly, but grow slowly and with intention, and really invite people in who understand what we're trying to do and can really show up as a part of this collaborative in a kind of heart-filled and mind-filled and hand-filled way. And so, yeah, that's our goal. And as those companies, matriculate through the 3 years, our idea is to create a shared services cooperative entity. So we have an entity that is not New Frameworks, that is not any of those member companies, that can be a central node for all of us and can help to provide, again, shared services for all of the member companies. And that's a concept called a shared services cooperative or a producers cooperative, which is different than a worker cooperative or a consumer cooperative. It's a producers cooperative. So that's our goal, and that's what we're building towards.
Awesome. And I'm amazed by how like spread out this is already. So like you've hit so many geographic regions. Hopefully going to Michigan at some point, because that's where I'm originally from, and Michigan needs people making stuff.
There's actually there's an initiative in Michigan called Balecraft that you should check out. Yeah, we're in touch with them. They were considering being a part of the seed program. They're they're kind of associated like loosely with UVM or U of M.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Got it.
I went to high school in Ann Arbor, so
oh no, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, you should check them out. They're great folks in trying to kind of figure out how to like get started, who they want to be, what they're doing. But we're thrilled. We're talking to a group right now in Ohio who's really excited to join for next year. There's folks from all over who are looking to really start this work and leverage it and move forward.
Just going into the assembly of the panel, is it basically kind of a plug and play no matter where you are for the manufacturers, or is it like are you kind of adapting to local conditions because you assume that they're going to be serving like a local market, or can you use the template that you developed at New Frameworks and just kind of like teach them that and then they can use that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there are two parts to the work that we do. One is just the panel itself and the panelization of any design. So that methodology of taking any design and panelizing it for structural insulated straw panels, and then fabricating those based on shop drawings, and then shipping them to site and installing them, that is universal, translatable across all, locations. So that's something that our seedlings, our members of the Seed Collaborative, take and have.
Yeah.
What is sort of differentiated or created differently based on place is one, all of the material sourcing. So the straw sourcing, the lumber sourcing, we try to keep within a 50 to 75 mile radius for the straw sourcing from our member seed companies. We were just having a call yesterday with A1 Design Build, who's out in Washington, and they said, is it okay if we stretch it to 60 miles? Because, we have this mountain range and, the fields are on the other side. And we were like, of course, it's more of a guideline, right? To just kind of say, let's try to keep this as close as we can. So, because part of the goal is to find the stacked benefits in this approach, right? So not only are we building these awesome carbon storing, healthy, high performance walls for these high performance enclosures that are going to keep our people safe and healthy, and with wildfires and terrible air quality and all the things that we're looming with the climate crisis, to keep people safe and healthy, also keeping workers healthy while they're working with it, also supporting local agriculture and putting money back into our local communities and into farms and forests that are in the places that we live. So if we can stack all of those benefits, we start to really quickly multiply good things across the world, which is what we desperately need right now, right? So it's not about just doing one thing, it's about doing all these things together as much as we can. So the local materials is the other thing that varies. And then the second thing that varies is the second thing that we do is we have pre-designs. So we have some kit pre-designs that we've created, New Frameworks. They're called the casitas, and they start at around 400 square feet and go up to 1,200 square feet. And these are homes that are pre-designed, so we do not have to have the design and engineering costs over and over and over again. All of the materials are specified, so there's no time and money spent on that, and so we can amortize the cost of all of that for people who choose to build these homes and fabricate them. So they are made with our panels. So The part that can also be particularized by our member companies in the Seed Network and the Seed Collaborative is people can do their own regional designs that meet their own, again, vernacular, style, feel, et cetera, of those locations. So, for instance, yesterday on our call, Living Craft in Colorado said, well, we would really like to create some, kind of Colorado vibe, our own small units, just like you all have created the casitas. So what we've decided within the collaborative is we will share amongst ourselves those pre-designs so that if somebody in Colorado wants the new Frameworks casita, they can get, their local producer can basically use the pre-design to fabricate and build that locally, and vice versa. If somebody really loves the Colorado design in Vermont, we can do the same thing. And we've set up a way to exchange that within our network so that everybody's time and expertise is fairly remunerated, and but yet these things are accessible so that we can share them and leverage the value of them.
That's so cool. And so, I mean, getting a factory or facility kind of set up, like what are the space requirements and finances? Like what do you need to kind of get this on the runway and up and running?
Yeah, it's pretty cool that it's low capital, low capitalization. So, and that's one of the reasons we're excited about it, is that it's this low barrier to entry for manufacturing these panels. Chris Magwood actually helped us get started. He coached us and helped us kind of understand the spatial requirements needed when we first started. And our first shop is around 4,000 square feet. You can get away with a little bit less, you can get away with a little bit more, but one of the things we do is sort of help people work through their existing, what workshop they currently have or what space they might be looking at, and figure out how to lay that out for the production of straw panels. So you need a space that is, it doesn't actually have to be conditioned. We had one of our first year cohort members produce their first building in a barn, in like an outside kind of covered, barn space with a gravel floor. So it didn't even have, poured concrete floor. So if we're talking about, how can we make it really efficient, I think at a certain point, you're going to be like, all right, that's slowing us down. We need to improve that. But the point being that you can start with that. You can do a home with that. That's possible. It's not impossible. And so that low barrier to entry, I think, is really helpful. All around the country, for the most part, we have a lot of either decaying or underused industrial buildings and manufacturing fabrication kinds of spaces. And so those being taken over by local folks, using them to actually create a fabrication space is a really cool thing to think about. I mean, you just mentioned you're from Michigan. I'm also from the Rust Belt. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Chicago originally. I was born in the Chicago area and then grew up in Michigan, went to high school in Michigan. And, we are from a place that there's a ton of manufacturing and industry. And I think the vision of making that this industry and fabrication and manufacturing world that supports climate regeneration and sort of a new tomorrow in this healthy way is something that I just get really jazzed about. And I think that's the vision, is like, this cadre of world remakers. Like that's what we have in front of us, and that's what's possible.
Yeah. And I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but I do have to say that I was in rural Washington driving through, and it's the same thing. You go through these lumber towns that have just been decimated over the years because the industry just kind of up and left. Aberdeen in particular kind of stands out, Kurt Cobain's hometown. And it's just like you have this existing infrastructure that is completely decaying because doesn't make sense to maintain it anymore. But like if we give it another few decades, it's just going to be completely dilapidated, gone, and can't be used again. But this type of industry that you're talking about can come back in, rejuvenate it, and like you don't have to spend the embodied carbon rebuilding a bunch of facilities. Plus, you bring back towns. Like it solves so many
That's right.
problems. And yeah, and of course,
yes, and that's really briefly also exactly what Timber HP did in Maine. So they took the paper mills that were, in towns that were decimated similarly from a lot of the paper industry moving away, and used that paper mill to actually create this wood pulp processing into insulation solution. To me, this is exactly what we need to be doing. These crumbling infrastructures from the yesteryears of, whatever approach we're now realizing isn't the best one to go forward with. Let's re-inhabit that with these
Yeah.
solutions that are going to house our people and also care for our earth at the same time.
Yeah. And I wonder, this is probably down a different rabbit hole, but like the rail infrastructure that exists, especially around the Rust Belt, like to reuse that if you can cut down on embodied carbon by using rail instead of semis. And
Yeah, and intermodal is the way to go. Like
yeah,
we actually work with an intermodal shipping provider and transportation provider, and we use rail wherever we can. And also, I mean, the Great Lakes, we have a really good,
yeah,
actually shipping options and literal ships that we can use as well. There's a little less than that in the middle of the country, but yeah, utilizing rail wherever possible is huge.
okay, yeah, this is getting me jazzed now. So I'm gonna we'll be here all day. So to because I know you have many things to do, I guess I should kind of wrap up here a little bit and just ask the big question about what you think in terms of like trajectory for the straw panel homes. Like, what do you think the industry is going to be like in coming years? Do you see like widespread adoption everywhere, or do you think there's going to be like nodes that kind of blow up initially, or something completely else?
It's so interesting, mostly just because of the recent, political changes in the U.S. I think I would have said that I could see widespread adoption for a lot of reasons because I saw, national home builders, like big tract home builders and stuff like that, starting to get interested in these kinds of solutions and starting to really understand the cost of embodied carbon in our buildings. So not just operational carbon, but embodied carbon, and combining those two, that's the thing that we really need to be maximizing in all of our builds at the moment. And I was starting to see that really, become a realization that was shared. I think it still is. I think the question around resources and communication is now one that we are challenged by, based on the current political situation. So I think it's going to depend a lot on how much we can pull together and continue to communicate and continue to optimize and develop these kinds of solutions and technologies. I mean, I am an optimist and I am a very practical person. And so to me, I think I just read this earlier. It's like, we don't follow hope, hope follows us. And I think that's what really hits home for me is I'm like, it doesn't actually matter what we think will happen. It matters what we do. And so if we can do the thing that will help make that happen, that is how it will happen. So that's really how I believe and where I work from.
And that was Ace McArleton of New Frameworks. He's co-founder and co-CEO, along with a bunch of other stuff that he's doing. Really great stuff. Jay, what were the highlights of your chat with Ace?
Well, I think as you could tell, I got very excited when he started talking about kind of bringing new life back into some of these communities that have seen deindustrialization happen, but still have the infrastructure in place and the buildings in place that can kind of be rehabilitated, and folks can move in and start creating jobs in those communities again. To me, that is just such a cool concept. And being from the Detroit area, I really would love to see that happen. I would love to see somebody in Detroit pick up the torch and kind of start running with it.
Yeah, it's so cool. I remember meeting the guys from Timber HP at one of the Passive House conferences, and it's such a cool story of a mill, which was essentially the heart of a community that I think, as the story goes, closed down because not many people were buying paper anymore, because not many people are reading newspapers anymore. And then they've managed to repurpose that mill into making wood fiber insulation. So very similar raw materials, but being put to a different use and revitalizing a community while also creating a whole new industry for also a great product for a really good way of building. And I see a lot of parallels with that here in New Zealand, where we've also had a paper mill close recently, and that industry is struggling. But it's such a great way of using a similar base raw material, because we have a lot of forestry and we have a need for more natural building products. And as they started out at the beginning of this interview, things like straw, which they're focusing on, is also an agricultural byproduct. So being able to use materials that would otherwise literally go to waste, and incorporate them into a really useful product, is just such it's a great way to heal, as he puts it, instead of just doing less harm. And I really like that philosophy, which we often hear from places like the Living Building Challenge, where the concept of sustainability is a bare minimum, really. And what we should be doing is actually improving the environment, which is a big part of ACE's mission.
Yep. And yeah, just the idea of kind of a more regenerative approach, and using the carbon sequestration from some of these natural materials, particularly straw. We didn't even really touch on that, now that I think about it, and it's just like,
Well, yeah. I mean, there were so many other good things that Ace touched on. Things like the concept of updating a local and indigenous vernacular of building, which I love, that concept of bringing the best of traditional designs, which are probably developed for a good reason, for a particular climate and a particular environment, but bringing them into a more modern context. And also this idea of sharing IP and creating a community and an ecosystem of skills and resources, rather than just trying to keep everything to yourself, because the aim really is to accelerate the growth and make some of this stuff more accessible to more people. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of really great stuff in there.
I really love the Panelizers Anonymous,
Yeah.
which I didn't know if he was actually going to mention it by name, but I knew it existed in a very general sense, because Edie Dillman had mentioned it, that all these, you know, prefab panelizers are kind of all on a like, I guess, a really, really extensive text chain, or group text, and it's really cool that it's not just Seed Collaborative that's all working together, but this giant group of people who would otherwise be normally be kind of competitors and trying to outdo one another. They realize that it's a way better approach to collaborate and try to, like, accelerate and promote and move the industry along, by working together rather than fighting each other.
Yeah, yeah. So really good to mention those. The Seeds Collaborative. Definitely check that out. And also, yeah, I love the idea of Panelizers Anonymous, of people just getting together and sharing. Because I see the emerging trend of panelization, and as Ace said, that it's not particularly complicated for any builder who's done a little bit of building, and there's only a limited number of ways you can make a panel that is easily transportable and goes together. So it makes sense for not everyone to be reinventing the wheel all the time, and sharing a lot of that knowledge. And the final word from Ace, I really love, and I've been thinking about this quite a lot recently, locally, but also internationally. And we've spoken about where change is coming from and where leadership is coming from. And I love that sentiment that Ace closed on, which was essentially, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, is do the thing that you will hope will happen, and then it will happen. And I think a lot of time we spend waiting to see leadership come from somewhere, or wishing that if only a a building code would change or local rules would change. And I like that idea of basically be the change you want to see, and just making it happen, and pretending that the building code is the way that you want it until it becomes that way.
Yeah. What? How does he close on? Yeah. We don't follow hope. Hope follows us. I
Yes,
believe that.
perfect.
And yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great way to, to live your life, and it's a great way to build better buildings.
Awesome. Hey, well, thank you, Jay, for bringing us that interview, for spending a bit of time with Ace, and also to Ace and his team. We mentioned Jacob Rakusin there at the top as well, who has also been featured on the Accelerator before, and also in Reimagine. Speaking of which, Zach, what have we got coming up?
Yeah, well, the Passive House Accelerator is taking a pause on its live programming for the months of July and August, which we do every year. So we closed out the 2024-25 season at the end of June, and we'll launch the 2025-26 season at the beginning of September. But meanwhile, things are very busy within the Reimagine Buildings Collective. And you mentioned Jacob Rakusin just did a fireside chat with Michael Ingui as part of our Reimagine Materials series of conversations and small group sessions in the collective. Coming up this Friday, we have an Ask Me Anything Friday with Melissa Furukawa, who is with Peel Passive House. She is an expert in Passive House building and component certification. So she'll be answering all sorts of questions there. And then on Tuesday, July 22nd, we're joined by Joe Steebrook, the Dean of North American Building Science, as dubbed by the Wall Street Journal. He'll be doing a fireside chat with Michael Ingui as a special session of Reimagine Tuesdays within the collective. And then on the 24th of July, we launch our summer cohort of the Honeybee PH course by Ed May. This is your chance to learn how to energy model like Ed May. And so you can join the collective to take advantage of all of that. We also just this week launched our Reimagine Summer Labs, where we have small cohorts working on specific challenges within the world of building decarbonization and passive house and embodied carbon over the course of the summer. And they'll be sharing insight briefs inside the collective about their findings. And then hopefully we'll also get those shared out to the full Passive House Accelerator at a Passive House Accelerator Live in the fall.
Awesome. Thank you very much again, Jay, and thanks to our sponsors. Thanks for all that. And we'll see you again, or be back again next week on the Passive House Podcast.